as we wait for Instagram. All right. Instagramming it up. All right, we're good. All right, so today, July 4th, is release day for my new, well, not mine, but our new song, Lights Down Low by the Mars Saturn Sound. It's myself, William, and Chris, and we produced this track, and I'm going to show you a little bit of the beginning, the very original idea, and then where we are. But first, let's listen to the original idea, or the final idea all the way through. Well, there it is. Well, that's the whole new track. It's out today on streaming, and everywhere you stream, Spotify, iTunes, etc., and whatever. But I wanted to share it with you guys. Like, I wanted you to listen to individual tracks or whole groups of tracks by themselves, so you can kind of get an idea how it all falls together. And what my thought process was behind it. I really wanted. We can start with that. I really wanted to have this like warm, swimming, lazy kind of tune where you just it doesn't really have a lot of like jump out parts. It just kind of floats along, and I think I did that really well. And the interesting thing is, I didn't think of it as a gaming song, but apparently, it's been getting a lot of playlisting for specifically for gaming. And I can see it now. I that's not what my intent was. It really wasn't. But I've had a few playlists that were really that were picked up on SoundCloud and like Spotify that are just like, hey, we'll put this on a game playlist, and it's not even what I intended, and I'll take it. But so let's start with the I like when I do it like this and I play it by bus, I like to play the drums last because I feel like the drums don't really they're there and you just don't hear all the instruments and all the bed of the song because the drums are just there carrying along. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mute. Or actually, I'm just going to solo. Let's start with the keys. And you can hear that. And I'll bring up individual buses. And then I usually do the effects next. Let's see. This cool little this little moogie part that I created on my Poly D. Where is it at? Oh, there it is right there, yeah. There you go. That's right. There's this really cool plugin I use for like, it's a, you know how when you, if you guys know anything about music, you when you have compressors and you can do some ducking and pulsing and whatnot, and like sometimes that's great, but sometimes I just want it to duck and I don't want it to do anything else. I don't want it to compress. I don't want it to squish or inflate, expand, contract. I don't want any of that. What I want it to do is just duck. This plugin right here on this Moog part is literally called duck. And it's all it does. You can set it to a sidechain. I don't have it set to a sidechain here. I tried it like that, but I just didn't like what it was doing. This is just a default, sort of a default setting, and you can adjust the amount, the wet amount. I tried it to the kick, and I felt like it was too much. I still want a pulse. Excuse me, but I don't want it to only happen. I want this to happen no matter what. So this is a beautiful little plugin. I think it was really, really inexpensive, but I would go to that. I would defer to that duck plugin over anything else because of just the simplicity and the effect that it creates. I mean, when you put this together with just, I mean, I even have it on these. I even have it on this, and this is actually ducking from a side chain. So listen to the two together. This is actually the chords are ducking to the kick, and that synthy Poly D pad is just basically following the same time, but not doing it when the kick happens. But when you add that to like other additional, oh, let's do the vocals, or no, the effects. Let's do the effects. It just really carves out some really cool space for these things just to sit without doing a lot of compression and expansion. I can deal with that on the buses, but or on the final output buses. But for right now, without doing anything, spatially, that's just, for me, that's the spice right there. That's really nice, really simple too. Very simple. That duck plugin is, I use it, it's going to be on, it's usually on every single track because of the simplicity. It's not complicated. You can get complicated with it for sure. I mean, you can set up different times, you know, do different crossovers, frequency crossovers, set up different groups. You can have these, you can have groups of ducks linked together. It's pretty crazy, but when you first open it, it literally is like, what speed, what part of the song, what part of the track you want ducking, and the amount. It's so simple. It's, I mean, I don't know anybody that's ever created something as simple as this, but it's perfect. It's just perfect. So let's bring in some of these other little samples. Let's bring in the horns. A few of these, I think these are all created with either Machine, Arcade, or sometimes my Machine. Yeah, my Machine, Arcade, and some. I don't think these are splice samples. I think a few of these elements are from my original idea, and that'll be a surprise when we get through this part. But we'll go back to the original file later and open it up without even like prepping it for you guys. I'm just gonna go grab it and bring it in. Anyways, so let's put that together with the Moog. And we're getting this really cool like spatial effect going on here. And isolated, they sound like, wow, that's really cool, but when they're in the mix, you don't hear it until there's space between parts, and then you're like, where's that little thing coming from? And this is part of the space elements that are in the Mars Saturn sound, like the ideology behind it. It's like we don't want these little spacey effects that kind of suggest travel or interdimensional journeying, and that's been always a part of our day one. I remember Chris and I had discussions about that, saying, hey, we really like that, and that's where we're at. And actually, I think because we like that kind of stuff, that's why we even came up with the name. So let's add these effects in. I know this one of these risers. I'm going to turn these up maybe a little louder so you can hear them, but some of these risers and effects were all part of the original track. Let's add the keys. And let's go to the vocals. Let's add vocals, but let's put the keys in. You hear that kind of just cause that slow move between left and right and up and down, and let's add that little move part in. And let's add the effects. I'm gonna have to turn up some of these volumes for you because it's not this isn't the mastered project, so like it's not gonna be as loud as it is on the final track. James over at Hot Tonic really does a great job of putting all the shine on it. So we don't have that right here, but this is close. Okay, we got all of that. Let's add the horn. I'm really trying to remember what the original bass idea was a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure it's definitely not where I wanted it to go. But you know, with limited knowledge and experience of how to make basses, and you know, having not worked with bass players, you know, back when that song was created originally, we just kind of said, oh, that's where we're at, and it might have been good, but I don't think it's quite like this. And then when I was thinking about it a while back, I was thinking, what kind of bass would I want? Well, I wanted something like a stand-up, between a stand-up and a cello, sort of, but with a lot of vibration to kind of, I don't know, just kind of rattle around in the background. I thought we had a lot of these spatial effects, and I thought everything was really cool. And I was like, yeah, but you know, do a normal bass, and it takes a lot of. This song, I wanted it to be a little more wider and a little more spacey, so I wanted the bass to kind of like a low rattle, you know, like a car speaker in the trunk where it just kind of rattles. So that's what this does. It kind of just, it's a cello stand up, something, a plug in from Logic or whatever that I was using, and I think I don't have it here, but I wanted it to rattle. So let's check it out. Let's mute the vocals real quick because we don't want that. It doesn't sound that elaborate here, but I'll turn it up for you. It's like almost kind of reversing sounding. Like some of those notes I had go up and back down a little differently well, it's what's happening right now is it's being compressed, but I have a way of doing things where sometimes if I like a sound the way it is, I'll flatten it as is and then modify it again, and then flatten it again and then modify it, and kind of building up in layers of my adjustments. I think I did that once on this, but it's like a but with that with the keys together, it just kind of rattle on like a rattling, a vibration on it, and then you would do with a kick on it. And going with our normal kind of like boom bap, hip hop drums. That's where we usually start. That's where we kind of found a groove back a couple years ago, but just a real like just knocking. Right there sounds pretty dope. It's a it wouldn't have that space stuff that we like on it, but it's more. That's real closer to being just straight up hip hop. Song. Let's move along to after this loop. Let's move into the breakdown. And this is all the automation that's making all this kind of move around and dance and swim and pulse. Automation is very daunting, and if you don't understand it or don't pay attention to it, sometimes it can make or break certain songs. A lot of your famous songs out there now, your EDM songs or whatever, that's all through automation. And yeah, you can probably do it without automation sometimes, but automation makes it easier and makes it a lot quicker to get to the point. So what I do is I write out a whole song, I arrange a whole song, figure out what I want to do, but I wait till the end or wait till I'm closing in on the end to do the automation, because that way I don't have to go back and I know my sounds are right, I know the vibe is right, I know the arrangement's right, I know everything that I want in there is good. Now I just have the matter of how to subtract and add and inflate and expand and delay and reverb and all that stuff at the end I can do the automations. That way when I'm working on it, the only thing I have left to do is the automation. And that's not always the case. Sometimes I have a particular thing in mind with the automation that I want, and that's fine. But if you don't, in my opinion, is if you don't save a lot of the automation for the end, like you can do whatever you want. But for me, the mass automation like this usually occurs at the end when I'm like, okay, this is a really good arrangement. I like what's happening here, but how can I make this part better with what I have? And then use the automation. Doing that actually adds, I think, of other things to do too, and it has its own ups and downs. You have your own problems that come with that. Again, sometimes it's you work on a part and you get the automation right, that's cool, then you copy and paste it all the way through and you make adjustments, and that's fine. But when I want to do massive stuff like drop out whole sections of audio or do whole reverb delays or whole tweaks, but the automation I'm doing in my head while I'm working on it, I'm just not actually doing it while I'm working on the track. I'll be writing and thinking, okay, here's where I'm going to do this, and I will leave space in my mind and on the track for that to occur. So technically the automation is in my head. It's just that I'm waiting to the end to implement it because I want to make sure that all the things are right and the sounds are right and the sonics are good and the instruments are fine and everything's flattened and merged, and that way I'm just treating it like Legos. I'm just building stuff, but in my mind I'm thinking, okay, make sure to keep a bar for this, a half a bar for that. Drop a beat for that, and then drop in the automation like Spice and just kind of fill it in as I go. And so that's a little bit, that's probably how I should have started saying that, but so the automation is going on in my brain. Let's get to the break. Let's get a little bit before this so we can hear this part. I've been doing a lot lately is really subtle changes in rates and fluctuations in the automation to make it even more organic feeling. So it's not so extreme all the time. It works sometimes. It works more often than not, but you do have to get extreme when you do breakdowns and intros and outros in different sections when you want it to be very apparent. But when the song is going along the way, you just kind of notice it's just kind of organically floating around. That's how I do that with just very one or two drops here and there. Like look at this delay repeater value. It's basically saying I'm gonna go up and I'm gonna fade down a little bit. It works well for what I'm trying to do with this kind of song. There's the vocals, but here's the vocals with no plugins on it. That's just raw. That's just a raw pitched up or pitched down vocal samples, chops, and manual edits and chops. And it sounds good. And I like it, but when you add that automation to those plugins and you put those plugins on there and then you just do all that automation, the difference is staggering for me. Now you have that. I think almost 2 or 3 of the plugins on this track all have automation. these have some automation on the actual mast, on the auxiliary bus. It's ducking. The automation is getting ducked, or that part is being ducked through duck. Behind the beat, just ever so slightly. So it does give it that kind of swimming thing going on, where everything's kind of just ahead or behind. And that's the other thing I was telling one of my friends the other day about when I'm working on tracks. I try not to keep them perfect. So if I'm writing a song and I feel like, the chords are a good example of something like that, where I did the chords, and when I was applying the effects to them, see how they're a little bit off? Like they're not really on, like where the chord would normally line up, they're just slightly. So I go, well, that's really, really cool. I like that a lot. And I could quantize that and get it closer. But sometimes I don't even, most times I don't even worry about that. I just kind of go, okay, well, that's that. So let's try to figure out how to make it sound better by having something either go forward or backwards or on. And like, and that's that, I guess that's that natural swing an actual player would do. But I'm not a musician, so I don't know the technical part of that. I don't know how. I mean, I couldn't play a bass. Maybe if I tried, but I couldn't play a bass to be off the beat. I would have a hard time with that. In fact, I had a hard time with trying to get the kicks doing drums that weren't quantized, because it's very organic and very hard to control. And once I realized that I don't want to control it, I just want to whatever. I flattened whole sections of songs and realized that everything was off. So I just figured out how to make it syncopate with everything else, and it just turns out to be that kind of vibe. I just had to let go of trying to make it perfect. When I tried making music 10 years ago, whatever, I didn't understand that concept that you just let it not be perfect. Just let it vibe and let it float, and then sort it out and work with what you got, and just kind of go, you know what, it doesn't have to be perfect, because that quantize thing is a very dangerous button. I mean, it has its uses, but I generally don't use it. The only time I really use it is when I'm using machine, because there's a latency between, I still haven't figured it out, but there's a mad latency between when I'm playing and when I'm putting it into machine and then trying to export it to, I think you might have seen it the other day, but bringing it in to Logic as my main source, and the machine is my playground. When I export it, there seems to be some kind of delay, even more than there was already. So it's, I know there's probably a different solution for this, but I haven't figured it out or cared to. It just works. But if I play it in machine and record it, there's a latency and there's a delay. So I quantize it ahead onto the beat, but then when I export it into Logic, it puts the delay in there again, or there's another, I don't know. So I just do that, but I just had to work with what I got instead of trying to make it perfect. I just said, let's use it as it and then see how I can work around that. I'm just learning this as we go, like year by year, and trying to get the best results, and don't have all the technical terms, but I don't really care. I'm learning, but it's not my mission to become this a Berkeley college graduate who studied all this. I'm just having fun. I'm not trying to, I'm doing this for me. And maybe hopefully I can show you something along the way that was a different take on it. We'll see. But anyway, so going back to the automation, like when I did these vocal chops, I knew I wanted them to do some really serious panning and like ping-ponging around, but when I chopped them up, I didn't want to get stuck with a plugin or a way of doing that, so I chopped them up in the way I thought they sounded best. You know. And in this case, I had this is the same. Those are the exact same vocal chops. They're the exact same sample. I forgot. I think it was man, what was it? I think it was either a guy or I can't remember now at this point. But what I did was I took the same sample, the female, which I think was, I want to say it was, I forgot, it was either male or female, but I pitched it up and rekeyed it to C minor, and then that sample is the same exact sample, just pitched down and then rekeyed up to the relative major. So, or I always forget which order I did that, but I just bounced them around. I forgot this sample what it was originally, but what I did was I just flip-flopped. So if I sped it up, I put it down. You know, I fixed the key to go the opposite direction, either, you know. So I did that, and so that's why it sounds like two different things, but I was able to kind of manipulate that. Because what I wanted was like this call and response between two people, but I don't have singers, so like I have to do with what I got, and so that's how I achieved that result, is just by playing around with the different pitches and you know, just putting them in different keys to match the pitch. So anyways, but then when you put the plugins on, it does have this really swimming call and response kind of thing going on with it. And again, my favorite plugin, here we go. This, like, I'm using very subtle reverbs and a few things here to give it a kind of some tape and some kind of old school sound, but it's really not doing much. What's really doing a lot is the EQ. I've said this before and I'll say this again. I would pay extra money just to have RC20 Retrocolor EQ by itself, because all the other stuff here I can recreate, and I'm sure I can recreate this EQ somewhere else, but the simplicity of it, I mean, there's like 3 pan pots here and like a few buttons, and it does everything I need to do. I mean, if we do this, I mean, I'll just show you real quick. If I take this vocal, right, and I go over here to this thing and I just turn this off, if I turn it back on and then I just take off these effects, it's really not doing much. It is adding some wobble and some distortion and some saturation, and that's fine, but I can do that with a plethora of other things. But it's this EQ right here that, like, it's this tone knob, I think. I don't know what it is, but I'm pretty sure I can find another plugin and do this somewhere else. But like I said, I'm all about that simplicity for a lot of these things, and the more I learn about music, the more I realize that I can accomplish things being a lot simpler. But of course, when you get Logic or you get your plugins, the first thing you want to do is get all the plugins that everybody else has, because nobody uses the stock plugins. I find that the more I learn about this, the more when I write with my other co-writing partners and song producers and whatnot, we work back and forth, and some people have Logic and some people have other things, and some people have stock plugins and some people have expensive plugins or have bought plugins. And so what I'll do is I'll work on a track and I'll build the entire track out and the whole idea and the whole vibe. If I were writing this with someone else, like if this was a song we were working, I mean, Chris and I worked on this together, but I do a lot of the production, so I don't have to send it back to him to do production, because he's more of the beat ingenue, the creator of, like, you know, he's kind of like inspires this to happen and vice versa sometimes. But in this case, it was his original idea that he sent me. That I said, hey, that's a great idea, but let's develop it. Anyways, I'll go back and forth, and I will only use Logic stock plugins or no plugins, or I will build things out as ideas and flatten them so that when I send them back, they're just straight audio files. Because I want to be able to capture the idea and not be able to say, oh, well, I don't have that plugin. I don't know if you guys, but I don't know how many songs I've worked on in the past where, oh, well, I don't have that X plugin or that Y plugin. Oh, well, we can't. So, and, nobody wants to buy it and nobody wants to get it, yada, et cetera, et cetera. But when I send it back to them, the idea is there. It's printed. And so we can just treat it like I said the other day about we can treat it like a sample. So that he has free reign or she has whoever has free reign, they can do whatever they want. There's no limitations or restrictions. Yeah, it's permanent. But I have this mindset where if I did it once, I can do it again. And it's not that precious. And so when you stop treating these things as precious as like, oh, it's the end of the world, I have to save these for life and I have to save these plugins. Nah, if I at the end of the day, I would prefer opening up all my Logic files. When I'm finished with the song, I want them to open up with no instruments and relatively few plugins. I have them on here because this was done a while back. But if I were to do this now, I would probably have less plugins on this track. Well, I should say this: less plugins that create the tone of the sample, the track, the stem. Like these are wider plugins, and then these are like spatial things, and I can always replace those with spatial things anywhere, anytime. If I remove these spatial effects, they don't change the track. They change nothing. They just add to what I already have. I mean, if you go over here and you listen to the keys, for example, right? I'll turn off all these plugins. That vibe is the same. Nothing changed. I mean, nothing changed on that. The only thing that changes is its connection to the EQing, or the connection to other things I'm trying to EQ and blend. But the track, the vibe of the keys doesn't change. I mean, these are just multi-band compressors that are just tracking. They're just tracking and dipping for the bass. They're doing stuff, don't get me wrong, but they're not affecting the tone. And it's easier to go, hey, this is the tone. So if I sent this to you and you said, hey, I want to work with this song and work on the track, if I sent this to you right now, you would have stems that were basically no spatial, no reverbs, no delays, and you would be able to do whatever you wanted with it. And the tone would be there, and you don't have to worry about plugins and, oh my gosh, hey, Williams got this, and Well, that's my idea in my head about doing this, is that it's not precious. If I like it that much, I flatten it, I keep it, and move on. And so if I were to open this track up 5 years from now, these keys, without an expensive plugin or an instrument, are going to sound like this. It's kind of future-proofing it so that later down the road, if I for some reason decide I'm not going to pay for a Waves plugin or a Rhodes plugin or whatever, I don't have to worry about that. I can open up Audacity and go to town, or GarageBand, and not have to worry about any of that. Or send it to you in Ableton, and you can do it from there. And you can do a remix with my vibe and add your own to it without having to open a plugin. Yeah, you get the point. Anyways. I want to show you guys the difference here. I think if you saw yesterday's video, you'll see that I talk about this, putting this, writing my music and playing with my, crafting my music with the end result already kind of set. So this is the difference of this track with the Saturn plugin. I'll actually open up the tube text. Here's no spatial, no little extra widening, but then here's where it really changes. That high end just kind of screams out, and it sounds great. I like the way it sounds. I think it sounds great, but it's too hi-fi for me. I mean, it's totally fine. Like I could go either way on this song, but I wanted, like I said, I wanted it to be more just kind of a languishing song. So by taking off a little of that high end and bringing up different frequencies, does have that kind of warm bathtub feeling. But if I decide later that, like, you know what, I want to do like a Atmos Dolby version of this song where I don't have to go and do any plugins, I don't have to change anything, I could just flip a switch and all of a sudden it's now like a little hi-fi. So if, for example, if I want to put this on vinyl, and another lesson I learned is by making a record, if you take off too much, you're gonna miss that, because the record itself is gonna be a little bit soft. It's gonna be a little bit soft like that. I did a record where I did this before, and I sent it to get it made, and I realized that like all of those things that I was adding in there to give it that analog feeling, I don't know why I didn't think of it then, but I thought about it afterwards. As soon as I played, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. It's analog. It's going to analog, so I don't need to add any extra analog to the analog to make it analog. So in this case, if I were going to put this on vinyl, I would probably come back to this plugin and dial up this high a little more and pull down the lows a little more. I mean, that sounds pretty good too. I mean, you're probably not hearing it like, it's probably nothing, you're not going to hear the difference really. I hear the difference because I know what it is, but with this off, it's like a different animal sonically. And I've had producers, partners, and friends of mine say, well, why don't you just leave it like that? It sounds great. And I said, because it's not what I want. And at the end of the day, it's kind of where it sits. It's like what I want. I'm not going to settle for it being, I'm just not going to settle. If it's not the way I want it, then I'm not going to do it. But I'm going to play this one more time. I'm going to get some water, and then what we're going to do is we're going to open up the original OG track from 3 years ago and show you where it started. I'm very pleased with that. But now for the exciting part. We got the OG backup real quick here. Let's get this going. I had to figure out where it was. I knew where it was kind of, but I actually haven't opened this yet. And so fingers crossed if it opens. I'm sure it will because I've got the redundant backup, so if I have to go even further, but I'm hoping this works. So here we go. Let's plug in this backup. I mean, to be clear, I know the backup works, but let's see if the file does what it's supposed to do. There we go. Let's close this. Actually, let's leave that open because I don't want to have to start Logic. Well, no, if I close that, it'll be fine. Let's close this. Okay, here we go. Let's try this. So let's see. Where are you at? Oh, there it is. Let's see when this was made, because I actually don't exactly remember what year it was made. I know it was a few years ago during, I think it was right during COVID. Let's see what we got here. We're looking for 1004. Oh, there it is. 2021. So as you can see, this song was created February 13th, 2021 and modified on the 26th of 2021, and that was the last time this file, well, the original file was open. So after it left this stage and went over to another version a couple years ago, or like even last year, I think last year, I haven't opened this file. So let's see what happens. And then I think I even have the original concept that was sent over as like a little wave file that Chris had created on his machine and sent it over for me to pick. I don't even know if these plugins are going to work, so good luck. Again, this is one of those things that if you have all these plugins and they're old or outdated, they may not work, and I hate that feeling of opening up a beautiful track and nothing works because, oh, you know, whatever, didn't update, or the new versions, or Waves has gotten better with that because it used to be a pain in the ace every time they would change something. But ooh, it's exciting. Let's see what we got going on here. Something worked. I'm gonna solo this section. Wow, it did. Did you see that? Nothing. And you see the amount of plugins? It's like triple the amount of plugins that I have on this. So before I play this, I'll tell you this is when I decided that this was going to be the song to work on, because we'd worked on it and then we put it away for other things, because as we progress in our knowledge and our level of learning what we're doing, you put older things away because you want to move on something else instead of having to undo or fix what you did before. This is a prime example of that. You get stuck and you go, okay, I don't know anymore, so I'm just going to leave it where it's at. But I am in favor of starting a new track where I can start from scratch instead of undoing things. And this is one of those cases where I think I might have gotten stalled out because in favor of new things. Anyways, but you see there's like triple amount of plugins on these things. Well, the new version didn't have, it had some, but it looked like more because it was maybe double the amount of actual tracks. But yeah, but let's play it, see if we get something. Let me make sure I have my, okay, cool. Let's not be too embarrassed, okay? Let me turn down the volume because I don't know where this, I don't know if I gain stages like I can tell you I don't think I did it like as well as I did it now. There's the original track. Let's listen to it. Raw. Now we did a different vocal drop. That's a cool little vocal drop we did that I didn't keep. That's kind of cool. Totally forgot about that. I may have to revisit that chop. That's cool. I'm gonna go back to that one. Yeah, I like that little chop there. And you can also tell the difference between the track that you heard earlier, the final track. None of these are bussed together. Nothing is bussed together. Nothing is gain stage properly. Everything is just kind of this. This would be as raw as it gets, and nothing is. There's no buses. I mean, there's bus sends, but none of the tracks are bussed. Meaning, like, I think, okay, I'm wrong. The drums are the only thing that is bussed. I think I'm trying to remember when I actually started implementing larger groups of buses, but none of the keys aren't bussed. The effects aren't bussed. They're not even named properly. The drums they're fine, but I mean, they're just, everything's very thin. Like, those drums are super thin. That's wild. But you do notice one thing. So one of the things that I do, if I kept the vibe of the track. Here, this was a sample, but when I redid it, I had my Rhodes plug-in and I just played the chords and recreated them in Rhodes and made them do that swimming feeling. So that's an original. That was a sample from Splice. But it's kind of wild because it's a little jazzier. It's a little, even with that vocal, it's way jazzier. Like the drums are jazzy and less lo-fi. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, they are, because I can see what it says over here. These are from Machine. These were the programmed drums from Chris's Machine. Yeah, because they still have the original, the Machine, when it labels the tracks. But the vibe, that underlying vibe of the song is still there. And actually, now that you want to hear something really wild, let's watch this. Now we're going to go back even further and we're going to listen to the original sample straight out of Machine from Chris without any embellishments by me. I know I had that because I went and found that earlier, but I knew that wasn't the version that I had started working on, or I said, hey, let's do this. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, there it is right there. Straight from his Machine into my email, as it were. So, okay, this is going to be wild. I haven't listened to this either, but I know that when I saw it in his, because he would send it in his chat or via email or whatever, and I would go, okay, cool, that's the one. Let's listen to this. This might even be even wilder. Because I don't have this file, because at the time we were working on these tracks, I think I had a Machine, but I don't think I had his banks or whatever. So he would just send long wave, MP3s or whatever, and I would just pick them, and then he would give me the stems, or we were still working out. But let's listen to this. Same sample. This is OG, straight out from the Machine. Yeah, there's that bass that I was talking about that wasn't going to work. That's wild. Oh man, I haven't heard this version in like 3 years. That's incredible. That's absolutely mind-boggling. But that's absolutely incredible right there. That I actually don't want to do that. I want to do this. Oops. That's really wild. Let's listen to the final version compared to that version. A/B it real quick and then see how wild that sounds. Done. Oh man, that's totally wild. Oh man, I'm sure if Chris were here right now, he'd be thinking the same thing. Let's do this. Actually, let's do a solo lock real quick and see. something's. Oh, you know what? Hold on a second. I know what just happened. Did that? I wonder what that was doing. That sounded a lot slower than the original track. You know what? I bet you it was. I bet you when I brought that. Let's see something real quick. Maybe Logic is doing its ridiculous song project thing. When you import a track, it tries to match the beat. Let's see. No? That sounded a lot slower than it should have. Oh, I know why. Never mind. It's the 44 or 48K nonsense, because that's yeah, that sounds pretty cool too. It's like a chopped and screwed version of it. That's exactly what that is. I brought in a 48K track and it didn't convert it. Anyways, I can play that on somewhere else, but that's wild. That's a completely crazy sounding to me. Actually, I know what we can do. Watch this. Oh man, that just made me get a big old smile on my face, because I'm just listening, thinking like, that's where that started. Man, that's wild and crazy times. Let's see if it does it here. Let's go. Let's just bring the MP3 in, because let's see if that does it. Is it not going to play at all now? Is it going to be really wonky with me? That's wild. No, it should be playing. Sometimes this... I don't know. I was hoping to play those simultaneously, but for some reason it's being weird, real strange right now. But I know one way we can do it. Well, I don't think so, because of QuickTime. Oh man. Okay. But the difference between these two tracks is kind of ridiculous. That's kind of incredible. Let's close that out real quick and try something else. Hold on a second. Oh, man, I'm gonna go over that in my head for a while, thinking like, how did we get there? But I think that's the important part, is that sometimes you have to put it aside and come back to it later and get inspired and take it where it needs to go. Because there was something about that original track that I just loved, but I at the time didn't know what I was trying to do with that. So like, let's see if we can get this to work this time. Again, you're not gonna work? That's I'm in utter disbelief with that. Like, it's playing. I can hear it, or I can see it here. I don't know. It's doing its thing. I don't know what that's doing. Huh. Unless there's something wrong with that file, but it's the little meter is bouncing, so something's going on. Oh, you know what it is? I know what it is. Never mind. It's It's Logic switching between 48K and 44K. That's what it is, because my sound card is on 40. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. Duh. I think if I open a track that's... Yeah, so the sound card is on 44.1 and everything's playing at 48, so it's not going to play it properly. That's what it is. Yeah, that's exactly what that is. So what I'll do for that is this then. Let's do this. Let's go up here. Because it's saying 44. Let's try this. Project settings. Sample rate. Nini. What is that convert thing at? Yeah. Because if I'm not mistaken, will that work this time? Actually, I think I know how to fix this. So if you do this, maybe I haven't figured that out yet, but I know that if I import the song this way from, I'm sure somebody out there knows what I'm having a problem with, but I don't know it. And I guess I just never look for it. If I go here and hit done and I go to the Logic file, the final file, and I go audio and I go, is that the right one? Oh, master. If I go here and I bring this in here, maybe the drag and drop will convert it. I think that's what it is. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So for some reason, I maybe it's a checkbox I always miss, but if I import it in straight away, it doesn't convert the kilohertz thing. But if you drag and drop it from the window, it does an automatic conversion. So that's what I'll do here is I'll go this way. I just sorted that out while I was talking to y'all, so congratulations to me. But if I go here and grab this, it then converts it to, if anybody knows how to figure that out or knows it quickly, just tell me. So let's do this. So original track. Actually, solo lock. Okay. That's so wild. Chris, if you're watching, this is wild. But the vibe is that underlying vibe minus the bass right here is still the root of the whole song. The BPM didn't change. Mastering stuff so there's the final. There's the original, the very original, and then yeah, I know you didn't like that when I did that, and then the intermediary version. Shifted with that. I don't know what it is, but it's not not even sound right. Well, that's that. There you go. Well, that was a wonderful little surprise there that I totally didn't see happening. It's kind of great to go back and listen to that. But if you guys get a chance, go out and take a listen to my new track on all streaming platforms. The Mars Saturn Sound, Lights Down Low. Everybody have a happy 4th of July. Be safe. Stay cool.